Hello everybody, I'm Harold Page, alcoholic, and I'm always be alcoholic. It says once alcoholic, always alcoholic, but you know, I'm glad that I'm alcoholic in recovery today. I want to thank y'all for having me and my wife down. This is my wife, Sue, and this coming July, if I don't get drunk or we don't die, we'll be married 50 years. And I mention that because, you know, she's never drank or anything, and she's been married the whole time. When I drank liquor and stuff like that, I acted like I weren't married, you know, and I'm sure there's some people that might can relate to that. But I'll tell you one thing, I've been sober by the help of you folks and the grace of God since April 6, 1985. And I don't have to do that stuff no more and don't care to mess around. And half measures don't avail me 50% sobriety. They'll avail me 100% drunk. I have to do the best I can. I got a conscience. I gained a better conscience when I got sober and started listening and become willing to do those steps and suggestions. And the point is, I became willing to grow along spiritual lines. That's the point, this program. I didn't get that for a long time, but that's the point. But like he said, I was raised in Stanley County. That's about 60 miles, 55, 60 miles over the road, west of here, I guess, out there in West Stanley County. Albemarle is my home group, and I'm an active member there, and I hadn't missed a meeting since I've been sober. My wife hadn't missed an Al-Anon meeting since she found it, or it found her. And AA found me, and I don't play hooky. And go to other meetings and all too. You know, I just love AA, and I've never forgot what them people done to give us life, showing us a higher power and their kindness, generosity, and things like that to help us have a good life. But I was raised out there in West Stanley County. This is probably the poorest part of the county, but some of the richest people in the world live out there, you know. The most successful people, as Charles Stanley said, when a man dies, if he's got 10 true friends, he's a very successful person. And when AA found me, I become successful. And all of you folks are too. You might not realize it, but you got over 10 true friends. You got thousands. I've got friends, and y'all have too, that I could call at 2 in the morning and say, I need some help. And they wouldn't say, what do you want, boy? Or how much money you going to give me back? Or what are you going to do for me? No, they would be there. And that's great to have a life like that, you know, to reach out. But I was raised up there in West Stanley County, and it's a pretty place up in there. A lot of people build some high-end homes up in there. It's a beautiful place. But we made liquor. And everybody around there made white liquor on them creeks and stuff running around outside and in the woods like you might see on TV. But that was just a thing up there. It seemed like everybody there, all the kin folks and everything, made whiskey. And I was carrying sugar when I was 5 and 6 years old and things like that, helping make liquor and stuff. I want to tell this old Gaddis joke. I've told it here before. And it fits me and some of y'all too. I'm sure you can relate to it. I related to it when I first heard about my drinking. This old boy was sitting up there on the creek bank making that liquor. And he had that fire just right and that stream running out there, you know, about the size of a match stem, and it cooking just good. You can't leave a still when you got it going now. You got to keep the fire just right and everything. You don't want to scorch it or burp it over and just dub it and things like that. But anyhow, he was watching that, and he was real hungry. He was getting down in the evenings. He hadn't eaten nothing. And darn, he looked down, and there was no water moccasin there. Had a big old bullfrog in his mouth he'd just caught. So frog legs, you know, some of y'all have them. They're pretty good eats, you know. Them organic food, you know. So he just reached down there and got that old snake and jerked that frog out of his mouth, throwed the old snake down. He skinned them legs off, put them on a stick, and he put them around that fire, and he roasted them frog legs, and he sat there and ate them off to the bone. And he was sitting there picking his teeth, and he took him a drink of that liquor. He was running out. He looked down there and seen that old snake laying there in the creek, right pitiful looking. He said, darn, I just took his supper. I ought to give the old boy something. So he picked that old snake up and just pinched his mouth open, took that dipper and just poured him full of that white liquor and throwed him back in the creek. And about 5 minutes later, he felt something hitting his overall leg down, and he looked, and that snake had brought him another frog. You know, that kind of sums up when I started drinking, and I didn't start drinking until I was 23 years old, and I was around liquor all my life. But when I started drinking, I didn't care about eating either. That would interrupt your drinking time, you know. And it was kind of like that old snake. He was hungry, but he forgot about that. When he got a dose of that liquor in him, he done jumped timing, you know. I was raised around that, and I didn't know about alcoholism. Nobody called it that back then. If you was drunk, didn't feed your wife and young'uns, you was just no good. Wasn't no soft. They had other names, and they looked down on that bad, you know. And you couldn't have told me when I was a little boy that I was going to be one of them. And I'd see them convicts cutting them briars and digging them ditches and laying pipe and all that, and they worked all day. And you couldn't have told me when I grew up that I was going to do some of that too. You know, I got drinking some of that chain gang liquor, and but you couldn't have told me that stuff. But I seen bad things. Alcohol, them drinking and carrying on, it was kin folks and just a bunch of country folks and rednecks up in there, you know, and we worked hard. We wasn't dysfunctional, like old man Frank says. If you didn't function much, you didn't eat much, you know. And I was taught to work. If you wanted anything, you had to get out and work for it. Didn't nobody give you nothing. You had to work. And you didn't steal people's stuff. You didn't tear up their property. You respected your elders and at school and everything. You know, even though there was a lot of carrying on, cussing, raising Cain on account of drinking, you still expected to do that and work and do you. And I wasn't abused and beat on and things like that, but I got whoopings and stuff when I didn't listen or back talk. And we got them at school too, you know. And like Big Dennis used to say, we didn't have time out at the house, we had to knock you out. Dennis said his daddy would thump him into a 2-day coma, you know. I remember Big Dennis, I miss him too. But you know, I was brought up around that, and I didn't care for the drinking. I could have drank. We made a lot of liquor. I could have gotten gallons and never been missed. And I had fun growing up, playing with my cousins and everything around there, and I'd done real good in school. Ridgecrest School, grades 1 through 12. Big graduating class, might be a dozen. And 9 faculty members at the whole school. They done it all. Coached, taught, whooped butt and everything, you know. That's when they would lay a pole on you, you know what I mean? And they would whoop your butt then, and you got home, you got another one too. We didn't have no phones or nothing. We didn't have no bathroom at the house. It was my great-grandpa's old house we lived in. One of them old houses never been painted out of that forest pine sitting on the hill up there up on them creek rocks. And had an outhouse, you know, a 2-holer. And so if you needed to shoot crap with a friend, you know, you could. But we had running water too. If you run, get you a bucket full of it. But everybody around there had that, so I didn't feel no less than everybody. I mean, that's the way it was. And we had plenty to eat, decent clothes. And, you know, we didn't none of us go hungry and things like that. That people raised stuff, and we had hogs and old cow and stuff like that, and chickens and guineas and turkeys and, you know, everything around there. And And we kind of like Dolly Parton said, she got her education out behind the barn too. You know what I mean? We didn't have all that stuff in school to tell us how to do certain things when we growed up. We just watched, you know. And I had a decent upbringing compared to some. It could probably been better. And by today's standards, they would have probably come out there and told us we needed help and aid and assistance and all this, and might have needed some riddling. We had that redneck riddling out there. It was called a stick. You know what I mean? They straighten you up. You got to acting up. But that is an illness like depression. Looking back on it, I had some folks that suffered from that, and they just thought they was crazy or something, but it is an illness. We just didn't know about it. You know, there was alcoholism in the family, looking back on it, not knowing what it was, but today, there was a lot of alcoholics. And, but they were functioning more or less. They had to work, but I've seen them off. After my grandma died, I was in service, and I come up from Fort Bragg to go to Grandpa's funeral. And the Red Cross sent me in, and I remember after that, I had seen him take a toddy before. And after she died, it was a big family. And people back then, they usually had one wife, one husband. They stayed together, you know. I didn't hardly know anyone that was from divorced people. And anyhow, I've seen, he'd come by the house one day in that old truck, just as drunk as a cooter. Had some old big cross-eyed ugly woman in the bed of the truck naked in the back. And boy, that was a ruckus going on around there, you know, because never seen my grandpa do no crazy stuff. But he got drunk and out and just rambling. And what he had was that void in there. He was a laying dormant alcoholic. And when that void, my grandma was gone, I looking back on it, I believe it's what it was. He just went wild. But you know, they just didn't know what to think of him. He was a respected man. And he didn't plan on doing them things, but people thought that was awful. And but anyhow, he died back in the church at the church and got back in there. That was just a couple, but that was alcoholism. And I've seen things like that. Like I said, I didn't know what. My wife, she was raised across the creek. We didn't have no tracks up there. She was raised across the creek up there. She's the youngest of 10 kids, all from a farm family and everything. And probably the difference between their families and ours, they hid their drinking a little better, you know what I mean? And but now there was church going and stuff like that up there. And I had a bunch of people in my family that went to holiness churches and stuff like that. And they jumped benches and got an unknown tongue and carrying on. We'd sat in the back of the church, and I was scared to death when I was a little boy. And they was doing it, but it was for real. They weren't putting on. And later on, I made fun of some of them. And when I thought I was atheist later on. Looking back, some of the best folks I had in my life were some of them people. And so, you know, I remember and what puzzled me too when I was growing up, them preachers and everything, you'd hear them telling you this and that and all this. And then they'd come down there at night and I'd load their car up with liquor. You know, people look for hypocrites. You know, if you get sober and all, they'll look for you. In a little town, they'll watch you. You know, we'd look for preachers sneaking around the liquor stores or doing these things. You know, when I'd get busted and all, they'd have my name in the paper a lot, sometimes a picture. And, you know, if you found innocent, people don't remember that. They remember when you was caught. But it makes them feel better about themselves. And I've been guilty of that myself. And that's just the way people are. And but people were good to me, even when I started drinking. I quit school, and I'd haul a little bit of liquor around, not much, no fancy stuff. I'd done some of that. And those things, nobody never got rich at the house. So it's kind of like, I look at it like that old saying, ill-gotten gains don't get you nowhere. And I quit school and went to work down in that cotton mill, and I left there after about a year. And I went to service and joined the Army. And I was healthy, you know, and I could run circles around these guys and shoot well and all them things, you know. And shoot, I thought I had it made, you know. Heck, them guys didn't drink now. Them guys that were older than me, I was like 17. They were, excuse me, they were quite older than me, and I've seen especially a lot of them Yankees that were brought up around a lot of drinking, a lot of bars and things like that. And they'd showed us all these films in there in basic training about what these wild women would give you and stuff like that, and scared me half to death. Cause I was raised up there in Finger, a big community right next to some, you know. We didn't have none of that stuff up in there that I'd ever heard of, and they got to showing us all them pictures of them certain things that can happen from messing around. And I didn't care about going on them bars and stuff in bars. We could have went in back then if you had a uniform, 17 or 30, you could go in. And but I didn't care about none of that. I didn't care about drinking. I was having a good time in life. And I had a good time growing up with my cousins and everything. We raced cars and done things like that and pranks and stuff. We just had a good time, really. And we didn't hang around guys that drank. Some of them boys in town down there would drink and stuff like that. And they had great opportunities down there to find jobs. We got a hard time making a living. So we just thought they was sorry for not getting out and working. And we didn't mess with them, and they drank and stuff. And none of us boys didn't drink. Now, there was a lot of us, too, about the same age, and about all of them's dead. Now, a lot of them died on account of this disease, too. But I come in on leave from Fort Bragg, and I met my wife-to-be, Sue, out at Albemarle, the festival they have out there, and we got to going together when I got out of service. I don't think Sue would have went out with me if I'd have had beer on my breath, or beer in an old car, or liquor, or wanted to go. I don't think she would have dated me. But she didn't know what she was going to get in for, you know what I mean? When I got out of service, we got married, and so them $10 weddings out of Chesterfield we'll take, folks, you know. About all we had, you know, like old Mr. Buck says, when you're young and in love, all you need is a box of cornflakes and a mattress, you know. Love will keep us together, you know. So, I'm glad I didn't marry a woman that wanted a lot of fancy stuff and all shiny things, because she's been disappointed many, many times. Now, we had plans and things, and all I'd ever wanted was a wife and a little old house somewhere and some healthy young'uns and stuff like that. And our oldest son, Rodney, come along, very healthy and things like that. And we were happy. And, you know, a young couple and things. And I was offered this job to go to work on the railroad in Charlotte. And I went over and checked it out and got that job. We had to move to Charlotte because I had to work this extra board and all these odd times when other guys were off and things like that. Like I say, I'd never been in any trouble. Young, healthy, good health, good vision. Never had a ticket or anything. And they was looking for somebody like me. And I was one of the youngest brakemen they'd hired in years for that short line railroad. And right after I went there seaboard, SCL then took it over. But it was good money. It was 4 or 5 times what I'd been making, you know, $1 an hour, you know. And that's what most people made, $1 an hour. And I was making $4 or $5 an hour, and overtime, and double time and a half, and all that stuff, and worked 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and things like that. And sometimes we'd be in them trains riding down through there. I'd say, wonder why all them people's dressed up. And they say, it's Sunday, Harold. You know, I'd worked, so I didn't know what day it was. But we were doing all right. I didn't let none of that go to my head. But I got them old boys picked with me out there about not drinking some beer with them or something. So one time I went with them, after a few years, I went with them to one of them beer joints, you know, and walked in there, and they had them lights that flickered and stuff like that, and all them women's underwear was lighting up and things, you know. Some of y'all have seen them. Everything white turns purple and flickering around in there, and that's attraction rather than promotion, I guess. I drank a few of them beers for them boys, and my wife could tell you this. I don't remember just drinking a couple. And there weren't nothing lacking in our life. Had a good opportunity, good future, working there, healthy, good wife. She has a formal education, and she was at home then. Her son was healthy, a nice little old place, to live, and decent stuff. And I become a different person right off. All them things that I thought you shouldn't do, it wasn't long I started doing them. Some of them guys would drink 6 or 8 beers and they'd go on home, I'd stay there till they closed. Couldn't. And then my priorities were to get off from there and go home and do things with my wife and son. But when I started drinking, all of that took a back seat. Almost immediately. I mean, my wife will tell you this, I was not the person she married. And I started drinking that lying liquor right off. There's all kind of liquor. Lying liquor, dying liquor, puking liquor, cutting liquor, shooting liquor, traveling liquor. I even drank some confessing liquor one time. And it don't matter, it got to where it didn't matter for me if it was rubbing alcohol or Crown Royal or whatever, If it was alcohol, I drank other things to get it out of it. And I can sum up my drug story right quick. My preference to what I like. I traded 5 pounds of marijuana for 1 pint of cheap red liquor one time. I tell you what I like best. After a while, just carrying on and stuff like that, messing around, my wife had some pretty ugly words for what I was doing too. And I don't blame her. Had she started doing the things I was doing, I would probably still be in prison. But she didn't marry a drunk. She didn't understand alcoholism. She didn't know about Al-Anon, those things. And it was around then. I would give some of them guys out there on the railroad to winos and some of the places over in North Belmont, Tom. We worked all that area back up in there. And I'd give some of them guys 50 cents or something like that. And they said, how long give it to them? They're going to get wine. I felt sorry for them guys. You couldn't have told me one day I was going to do that too. Then, when I had a pocket full of money and a good job and good health, you couldn't have told me I'd have done that. But my pride a lot of times wouldn't let me do like that. I'd sneak up home, knock them in the head and get me something, go get me something to drink. It got like, that's where it took me. It don't have to take you there. When I got to AA, I didn't trust nobody that had a driving license or teeth. Sometimes I have a hard time with it now. No, you don't have to go. I couldn't understand when they brought me to AA and there was people sitting in there that had shiny cars and driving license, teeth and businesses and nice clothes and all. I thought, what in the world are they doing in here? It didn't make no difference if you was crawled out of a limousine or crawled out from under a bridge. See, I learned that in AA. It don't make no difference where you come from, out of Yale or jail. It don't make no difference. I didn't know none of that, but see, after a while, my wife, she took off and moved across town in an apartment, close to where you talked over at that west side, not long back, in that area, which is pretty hooded out now there, but it was very close to that. And then I stayed there in that little brick house, and you had a lot of fair weather friends when you had a pad and old motorcycles and something to drink and place to lay up and pile up and carry on, and terrorize the neighborhood and stuff like that. Ride on motorcycle in the house, do burnouts on them pretty hardwood floors and stick the front end through the sheetrock and donuts in there and the smoke boiling out the windows and get out there with a pump shotgun at 2 o'clock in the morning, shoot up in the air and listen to the shots rattle on all them little houses, when they come down. Now they put a SWAT team on you for such mess as that. I was drinking that crazy while back, but I never got fired. I never got no demerits. I never got no trouble at work. But I was in trouble with myself and my family, and a God that I didn't understand. So when you don't understand something, it's like Herbert Spencer says, nothing will keep you in further ignorance except contempt prior to investigation. See, I had contempt toward things I didn't understand. And I was closed-minded about it. So that contributed more so to my wild behavior, I think. And so she took off. And after a while, we had a dress code there, and you couldn't have long hair and things like that being tattooed up or nothing. And they just didn't go for it. And that was part of their rules. And so I got to drink some of that rambling liquor. I wanted to travel some, ramble. What I was doing was running from responsibility, because I couldn't be accountable, because I couldn't drink like I wanted to and be responsible. So I run. And that was my rambling liquor, and I rambled all over the country. And a lot of times people didn't know where I was at for a long time. And wake up under a bridge or wherever and look at car tags to see what state you're in. You know, for the majority of them from Texas or somewhere, that's probably where you're at. If it's getting cold, you go south. And just ramble here and there, and long hair and beard, redneck hippie, you know, rambling around communes and hippies and just crazy. And down there where you just come from in San Diego, Steve, that place over in there on Union Street up above the airport, that was a place where we all piled up in there, and I'd wake up Frisco or wherever in Albuquerque and different places. That's where it took me. And all the time I didn't know if I was dead or alive. I come back, me and my wife, she was there. She about loved me to death, enabled me out of love. Not knowing about alcoholism meant well. And we get back together, and I'd always work. Always when I was physically able, but then it affected me to where I couldn't work. And you laying drunk and can't even open a can of beer. Back then they had a church key, we called it. Then they come out with the snap tops that tore completely off. You know, you hang all them up and make them hippie curtains and all with them looped together. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. I'd be so weak I couldn't do that. When I'd get a pint of liquor open, I wouldn't put the lid back on it, because I was real strong in those days when I weren't drunk, real strong. And I would put it on so tight I couldn't get it open because it got weak. I got so weak, and I hadn't got into that hospitalizing liquor yet, but I got drinking a lot of that. Got drinking that, go get a loaf of bread and come back a year later, liquor too, you know. No intentions of going there with 30 cents in my pocket and 4 slick tires or something, and pull out in the old liquor store up the road. It was a dry county. We had to go places and get it. And somebody said, wonder how the weather is down in Florida. I said, well, crawl in, we'll see, or Texas or whatever. And somehow God got me there and back. Sometimes I did, and I'd get sidetracked on a Georgia chain gang, and the real one, like it used to be, and stuff like that. My wife would gather up money and come get me out of them places. I lost my license back right after she left that year back. That little boy I was telling you about, he got his license before me. He brought me to meetings. He brought me to meetings, and come to see me in places and stuff like that. And that ain't no way to have no family. I didn't know how to quit drinking. I didn't want to be like that, but I didn't know how to stop. And the last time I drank, I hadn't gained a higher power in my life, so I had no defense. And when that craving and yearning set in for it, I had nobody to ask for help. I could have called some AAs, but I was done drunk in my head, and I didn't have any liquor there with me. I had to get a ride and go about 8 miles to a liquor house, which they all knew me by then, to get something. And so I had no higher power. There'd be a time, ain't nothing going to help you but ask God to help relieve you from that. When I finally surrendered later on in the hospital, when I surrendered, I started winning, and since that day, I haven't yearned, craved, or wanted a drink since. Not one time. I have thought about it. But God, that I was trying to come to understand, took that away from me. Got that hurdle out of the way so I could move on and start growing spiritually. Let me recognize that right off, that it happened quick for me. But it took what it took the sad part of those things that went on for years, other people suffered on account of my sorry behavior. And up in there where I was raised and where we lived, people looked down on your family and your young'uns on account of your sorry behavior. They did, and they probably still do that at times. You can hide out in big cities and think everything's going all right, and but people know in little places, and they'll talk junk about you. But you know, I'm so fortunate through the years. My sons have grown up and they have wives. These boys ain't took up no bad habits. I got 5 grandkids. Ain't none of them never seen me drink. My sons don't drink. They got wives that don't drink. They got the same one they started with. You know, and that's good. You know, and we're blessed. They took out of their mama, and I'm glad. And they're doing well in life. And that come about by not worrying herself to death over her pappy on the chain gang or done dead. I'd probably been dead. I was 39 when I surrendered. And like I say, I didn't start when I was 23. But it piled on me quick. And but you know, AA found me. I wasn't looking for it. My wife, she'd take me to people and they'd pray for me, and she'd do anything for me to help me. And I would her too. It had been the other way around. I would, and would today. And they meant well, and it would work too. We don't have no monopoly on sobriety. And they'd pray for me, lay hands on me, and you know I felt better. I did. They told me some suggestions, things to do, like going down to that little old church there close to your house or something. They didn't try to drag me in theirs. You know, find the higher power, things like that, as I remember it. But I felt so good, you know, about being saved and relieved, and I'd go pull a 2-week drunk to celebrate that. Now that was crazy, but I'd done things like that. You know, I'd taper off, but that tapering off would lead to tapering up, you know. I'm glad my wife, she worked with this company for years, and she had insurance. I'm glad that she did, because I'd still be paying hospital bills, and I do believe in paying your bills if you're able and you owe them. I got to look the world in the eye. I can't owe a man something. I owe everybody, but I can't owe a man something and not straighten up with him. I heard a boy one night said, I'm on a CIO plan. Everybody I see, I owe. And I owe everybody. I owe everybody for introducing me to higher power and being at these meetings, you know. And I got to give that back. I can't stay sober keeping something, you know. I learned that in AA. I learned how to live. We had a good life till I started drinking. But you know, I've said this before, I think our life is better on account of my alcoholism today. But I do regret all them years missed with my kids and doing decent stuff. You know, you can't go back and change that. And said we don't regret the past and wish to shut the door on it. But a lot of those things, there's a lot of hurt. But things seem to be all right. And I've done the best I can to straighten that out. And I still try to do it by living amends. I've done those things as best I can. There's a lot of them I can't make. I heard a lot of folks out there. I got drinking that fighting liquor, cutting liquor, shooting liquor, and all that stuff too. And they've had that done to me. And that hospital my wife retired from, she'd been over there more than once, seeing them sewing me up and things like that. With a bottle of liquor, and the doctor there said, you can't have it. And I said, don't use the Novocaine, I got mine. He said, if you can handle it, I can too. And he'd go to stitching. And I wished I'd have took the Novocaine, you know. But you can't do stuff like that. And that same bunch over there have called me over there, doctors and things, and the psychiatric unit, to come over there and see if I can do something for them jokers in there. They couldn't handle them. And I knew some of them, some wild drunks like myself. They would call me, ask me to come to a facility like that. And used to, they would have called a law on me when they seen me. I got keys to people's homes and parsonages and churches and schools, all kind of mansions. People give me the keys. A lot of those people. would have had me locked up if they'd have seen me years before. Not that I was stealing their stuff, but I was a dangerous joker out there. And I regret that. And people, a lot of people, they knew how I was. You don't have to go tell them. Your reputation will beat you to the punch. And it takes time. And I didn't go out and try to gain respect and all those things. It happened. It happened. And I can go anywhere now with my head held up. And if I see somebody sitting in the corner of a little old cafe somewhere around home or a little old service station looking at me right funny, I'll make a point to go over there and find out who they are if it's somebody that I've done some wrong and don't remember. Above our meeting place there, after I'd been sober 5 or 6 years, and them old boys down there wanted to help me get some driving license. And I asked them what I do to pay them back, and they said, "You haul drunks." I do. I keep a couple old cars, and one of them will go all the time. And if you ain't been puked on, lied to, stole, cussed out, or hit in the head or something, you ain't helped many people, you know. Not where I'm from. You know. And because I done that when they were taking me to detox, pull a knife on them and things like that and all. And they'd take me down too, you know. And the boys, they knew who to mess with, and I knew who to mess with. But them same, you know, I've gained respect, people, and I didn't set out to do that. Like I said, I can go anywhere, look people in the eye. Me and my wife, we have our own home now. It's been paid for. We've been debt-free for probably 25 years. We ain't made a lot of money, ain't got rich, famous, none of that stuff, but we're happy. We keep it simple and live simple. Like my grandpappy told me, don't you never buy nothing on credit, boy, it depreciates. And I ain't never forgot that. And but we keep it simple. We go to meetings regularly. Our home group particularly, and if I'm not at my home group, I'm at another meeting somewhat like this, or I need to be there, or the Veterans Hospital, or wherever, or talking with a drunk. I hope that I don't ever get too busy and too wrapped up in worldly things or stuff that I ain't got time to help somebody that's laying drunk. I ain't afraid to go down in the ditch and get them. They went and got me. And I hope you ain't, because I might be the one in the ditch. I want you to come help me. I hope I don't ever get too busy, because, see, them old boys, that one that took me to the hospital last time I was drunk, the doctor told me I wouldn't live till the sun went down. He took off from his work without pay and come down there. Since then, I've taken him to the hospital and got him something to drink to keep him from dying. But he's sober today, but he was sober at that time. And I don't forget those things. I hope you don't never get too busy to do that. Had they been too busy, and they come up to that hospital, I was laying in that bed, and I thought they'd come to get the key. So I'd been sober 9 months when I took drinking again. I thought they'd come to get that key and give me to that building down there. No, they didn't come to get that key. They told me they needed me, wanted me to come back. I felt about that big. I said, "What? Why you want me back?" They said, "You can get sober and help people here." Them old timers knew what they was talking about. You can if you'll do what they suggest. And so I had surrendered, and I go back. See, my ego and pride, they would have let me out of the hospital. I'd have went home, my pride and ego, I went back down there. You ain't got no chip, you know. But anyhow, see, so if you know somebody's laying sick, drunk, or about to get drunk or whatever, call them up. I call people every day. People call me every day. I take time to do that. And I call more since I'm retired. And call them up. They might be fixing to get drunk. Or call them up and tell them, "Well, I ain't seen you in a while down at the meeting. We need you down there." Don't say you need to get your butt down there. We need you down there, and that is the truth. You won't be lying. You do need them. We need everybody. And they needed me. And I'm glad that they told me that. That made me feel a little bit better. You know, not that I hadn't been told that before, but that's the way I look at things. I come to understand, gain the God of my understanding, And it might not be like everybody else know. And one old timer used to say, Harold, all them roads, whatever religion, everything. He said, I believe they all merge at one place, you know. And I understand why it's like that. It can't cull nobody out. And one of them old timers said, Harold, you know how many atheists are in hell? I said, no, I don't, Everett. He said, there ain't none. When they get there, they come to believe, you know. And that grapevine, I still got that over there, and in the middle it says, man can't be in his own heaven till he's been in his own hell, and most of us have been there. And I could relate to that good, you know, right off. I subscribed to them for years and read every one, and now I got cases and I take them and put them there and take them, read them, and bring them back, you know, and give them and take them. Used to get books, a lot of that, and take them to the prisons and things like that. And one time they wanted me to go to a meeting when I was in chain gang over in Charlotte. They didn't make me, but they would, come on, go down there. And them nice people, might have been some of you folks, come in there, bringing the meeting. They're going down this little trailer. And them guys come back, they were talking about getting cigarettes and cookies and things like that, you know. I thought, well, them just a pack of bums. I ain't going down there like that. I was sitting on the chain gang, that pride. I didn't even want to go to that, you know. And I was up in the library there, and they had a few books and checking. I like to read. And that old big fat chain gang guard, he said, boy, right there's the book you need. So I just got it and stole it, you know. Took it to another camp with me, took it home with me. It's one of them big books, you know. That big fat joker knew what he was talking about. He knew why I was in there on account of that. But, you know, I couldn't go to him, but, you know, anyhow, one time a bottle of Wild Irish Rose, and, you know, I did like that stuff. And it got me 11 more months. And I was getting out, and it got me 11 more months on account of a bottle of that. Set back out of that one. Work release thing. I'm going to have to pay for this thing before I leave. I hope it don't depreciate. Now, I tell you what, folks, y'all got a good lively group down here, and Steve asked me down here, and we've had him over there at our place, and a lot of you fellows in here I've met through the years, and I admire you. Like, I wish I'd have got a hold of some of that liquor Wallace and Tom had there, some of that skin tightening liquor, you know. Them boys look good to be that old, don't they? I'm glad it's people like that and them old timers that was around that. See, I went to school with some of them, particularly Gaddis's kids, and I knew how he was. He was an old timer when I got to AA, and he was one of them fellas we wasn't selling no liquor to because he was sorry. When I come to AA, and there he was. He couldn't read and write, but he was one of the smartest fellas you ever seen. He understood, you know. He listened to things, and he would tell me stuff, and I learned from that. I've always learned. People, you know, there's a lot of knowledge in the world. A whole bunch of them run around on all these things you punch buttons on and crap like that. But what we need is some wisdom. What we need is some wisdom. The wisdom to know the difference, you know. There's a lot of knowledge, but wisdom is what little bit I've got. I picked it up from fellows in these places and all, and by what they do, their example. And I've seen them setting examples. That's why we go out of town a lot. They would come get us when we were new and go, all right, let's go. But we come in working, tired, and it's a lot of time to leave. We didn't even eat supper. We'd take off, and we'd go way off. There weren't as many meetings then. This was through the week, and these old timers worked too. And getting them old big cars, and here we'd go. And one time we was in Fayetteville, down at Alberta's, and this guy pulled out in front of Gaddis and about wrecked him. And I mean, it was a kid's fault. Well, he was a grown man. And I said, my God, and I went to cussing. And that guy gave Gaddis the bird, and I said, just hold it a minute. And I opened the door. I said, where you going? I said, I still toted 2 knives at the time. I'm going to go prune on him a little bit. For, you know, I respected him and him giving him the bird. That's my, whoa, no, now look at here, boy. you didn't get sobered up to go back to young game. You know, you can't feed your wife and young'uns in there. So their example of their behavior, he wanted to kick his butt also, but he didn't. Because and I look back, I done things like that. You know, when I see some old woman in a car looking at me right ill, looking beside her or something, which is rare, but I reckon that's that old woman I knocked down her mailbox that time or cussed her out. Tore her radio antenna off her car, you know, to beat a dog with or something. You know, stuff like I wonder, you know. But so I owe everybody, and y'all got a good place down here and good active group, and we could take some lessons from y'all over our way. Steve and a bunch of you guys know where we at over there. We meet on Wednesday night, Friday night, and Sunday night, a speaker meeting. And but I hope y'all get up to see us, and I hope I can get back over here more often. If it wasn't so far, I'd come over here quite often. And we appreciate, me and my wife do appreciate, thank you for the supper, and we appreciate all you folks being here and helping us out. Thank you.